Shields up, Ironbreakers. Welcome back to Dragon's Dogma 2. As you are no doubt aware by now, I am super excited for when this game releases on the 22nd of March. As a matter of fact, by the time that this game rolls around, pretty much everything that you're going to be seeing here on the channel are going to be live streams of Dragon's Dogma 2 for the foreseeable future. So hopefully you guys are looking forward to that. But anyway, IGN is still doing their IGN first thing, and they've gotten exclusive access to some Trickster gameplay. Now, Trickster is a vocation that I'm very curious about. I don't think it's going to be a vocation that I'm going to be maining because, as you guys know, I love me a big shield, so most likely we're going to be playing the basic fighter vocation for most of my playthrough. At least that is my prediction. I'm probably going to experiment with a couple of them. But the interesting thing about the Trickster is that from my understanding of what I've seen in Dragon's Dogma 2 showcases, as well as what they're showing on their website, it seems that this is a vocation designed around you getting the most out of your party. So this is a vocation that is for somebody to just kind of like sit back and be more of a strategy type playstyle, and you're going to send your party forth to beat the crap out of the monsters, and you're going to be buffing them and doing all kinds of debuffs and stuff to the monsters in the game. At least that is my understanding from what I've seen so far, but let's see the footage that IGN has here, which, by the way, if you want to watch this footage without my commentary, I'm going to be linking to it in the description of this video so that you can check that out. So let's see what the Trickster vocation actually plays like.
Dragon's Dogma 2 offers a wide variety of playstyles depending on what vocation you select. Most of these are the kinds of archetypes that you'd expect: melee sword fighter, speedy dagger-wielding thief, ranged archer, and spell-slinging mage. And some are hybrid vocations like Mystic Spearhand and Magic Archer that combine.
Mystic Spearhand also looks really badass. I hope that IGN gets to do something on the Mystic Spearhand. I'd love to get a little bit more details on that one as well.
Combine elements of one vocation with another for a completely new style of play. But what of the Trickster vocation? It was revealed as part of the Dragon's Dogma 2 showcase back in November, but little has been shown of this unique class beyond that quick 45-second look and a short description on the Dragon's Dogma 2 website. Fortunately, as part of our visit to Capcom, we got to sit down and play with the Trickster for.
Okay, so I'm just taking a quick look down here. If we actually hide my face cam, you guys can see that there's a couple of skills here. And the two basic attacks that he has, it says Beviling Fumes. Not exactly sure what that's supposed to mean. And Ephegeal Incense. We'll see what that's going to be like. Let me bring my face cam back. Maybe I'll put face on top right so that we can look at the skills on the bottom right there. Okay, let's go.
About an hour. And I can confidently say that this is a style of gameplay unlike anything I've ever seen in an open-world action game.
Yep, like I said, this is all about you just sending your party forward and then buffing them and doing stuff to the enemies.
Trickster is essentially a pacifist. Their chosen weapon, a ceremonial censer, does little to no damage when it's swung at an enemy. Instead, the purpose of attacking is to build up aggro and pull an enemy's attention towards you. To that.
So you pull aggro using this? That's not what I thought it was going to be at all. I thought you were going to be much more at a range or something. But it seems like from what they show here,
the purpose of attacking is to build up aggro and pull an.
You build up aggro and then it looks like you leave maybe that mirror image that we see right here, and maybe that is what the enemies are supposed to attack.
Enemy's attention towards you. To that end, you also have a special ability called Suffocating Shroud that sends out your smoke in a wide area and draws a large amount of enemy attention towards you. So, the question is, why would you want to get a whole group of enemies swarming on you if you can't actually damage them?
Simple. So that your party has a bunch of AoE and it destroys all of them in one go. One of the things when it comes to Dragon's Dogma is that potentially sometimes enemies can be kind of scattered and it can be very annoying to try and get them all in one spot. So if you can actually manipulate where you place your enemies, and then you have like a group of characters that have big beefy AoE attacks, you can just beat them down into submission.
See, that's where the word Trickster comes into play. By using the Trickster's unique skill, Ephegeal
Enthralling Aroma. Invoking Essence.
Since you create a simulacrum, or clone for simplicity's sake, that enemies will perceive as the real you. This clone has its own health bar and will disappear if it's
Give me just a second. I want to see what that red skill was.
Effigial.
Enthralling Aroma? No, Enthralling Aroma is probably
You
for...
create a simulacrum, or a clone, for
Ah, God, that was so fast. What button did you press there, buddy? I must know. Come on, YouTube. Give me the detail. Visitant Aura. So he went for the L1 swap as opposed to using the R1 swap. And that gave him Visitant Aura. No, there's also Tricky Terrace and Aromatic Resurgence. Yeah, I don't know exactly which one he did because he did it so fast that I don't think it even highlighted. Yeah, that was so fast. I'm going frame by frame. And I can't see any skill getting highlighted. Oh, Aromatic Resurgence.
clone, for simplicity's sake.
Considering that it's red, I'm going to assume that this is going to be like attack up for the party, because usually red stands for, you know, red dust and stuff like this, particularly in Capcom games, tends to be a more offensive type buff.
Will perceive as the real you. This clone has its own.
And you can actually see the party becomes like, look at the way that the party looks right here. And as he finishes the cast,
for simplicity's sake, that enemies will perceive.
See how they all get the red aura? This is probably an attack up.
As the real you. This clone has its own health bar and will disappear if it's killed, but you can also teleport the clone to you while it's still alive with the press of a button. This way, you can basically kite enemies to wherever you want, as long as you keep their aggro and keep your clone alive.
So this is actually a really cool feature because you can basically control the battlefield. So it still is very much about strategy, and you can control where the enemies are going to be at any given time. And for those of you that are not familiar with Dragon's Dogma, like I already said, you can just get a bunch of characters that do AoE attacks and just grind them down. But even more importantly, if you happen to have a really well-trained sorcerer pawn, they can just rain death on enemies, because if you can just keep them in one spot, they can just bring down a high bow line, poof, everything explodes. It's beautiful.
So, you can maneuver a foe to get an environmental advantage, which is super important because...
Oh yeah, that too. Environmental advantage, like you can bring them to water, they get wet, shoot lightning on them, deals more damage, stuff like that. And also bring them over to, like, oil, set them on fire.
Trickster shines the brightest when there are cliffs, uneven surfaces, or
oh yeah, push them off of cliffs.
That can be used to your advantage. The Trickster has two abilities designed around creating surfaces that aren't really there, but appear real to enemies. The first, Tricky...
That was interesting. What are these?
...of the environment that can be used to your advantage. The Trickster...
Bro. This guy casts stuff so fast. Elusive Divider. So that's like a fake mountain.
Trickster has two abilities designed around creating surfaces that aren't really there, but appear real to enemies. The first, Tricky Terrace, creates a cloud that can be placed off a ledge that the enemy will perceive as real solid ground. And the second, Elusive Divider, will create a wall of smoke that you can see through, but the enemy cannot. The final piece of this puzzle is the Visitant Aura, a technique that essentially allows you to make an astral projection that you can freely move around to scout the landscape for as long as your stamina will allow. You're super vulnerable while controlling the projection, so using Elusive Divider to give yourself some cover while using it in the heat of battle is a good idea. Crucially, you can float off ledges, ascend or descend at will, and even call your clone to wherever your projection currently is.
Oh yeah, let's just walk off this cliff. This'll be great. This is a really interesting playstyle. This is kind of, if you think of Magic decks, for those of you that play Magic the Gathering, this is like the blue Magic deck of Dragon's Dogma 2, which is an extremely interesting playstyle. Like, I went into this thinking, oh, I just want to be a basic fighter. But I'll be damned if the Trickster doesn't sound fun as hell, dude. What the hell?
I'm sure you can probably see why that might be useful. When you combine all of these tricks together, the real value of the Trickster comes into view. Before getting into a combat encounter, you can create a clone with Effigial Incense, use Visitant Aura to scout out an area for enemies and look for any sort of environmental hazards, like a cliff for instance, recall your clone so that it hovers over said environmental hazard, Place a false floor underneath it with Tricky Terrace, then lure enemies close to the clone and use Suffocating Shroud to send all their aggro towards the clone, and then watch as enemies throw themselves off the ledge.
Look at that dumbass. Look at him go.
Towards the clone.
He's like, I'm going to get you. I'm going to get you. Oh, no. You dumb gobbo. You get what you deserve.
Watch with glee as enemies throw themselves off the ledge in effort to get at you.
That is awesome. Whee! Whee! That is pretty cool.
Obviously, this is a lot of prep to go through, and it isn't going to be practical in every single situation, which is why the Trickster is also equipped with some other tricks up their sleeves. First and foremost, they are a support class, relying on and substantially buffing the strength of their pawn party so that they can do most of the heavy lifting. One such buff is Aromatic Resurgence.
That's the one we saw earlier.
Party, making them hit a lot harder. While
just like I said, deals more damage.
Reasons, I had to make a mental note not to use this buff because my pawns would kill all of my foes before I got a chance to show off any of the more technical tricks of the vocation.
Ooh,
the
it's
most
OP.
powerful spell I saw of the Tricksters was Dragon's Delusion, which takes some time to cast, but brings forth an illusion of a dragon that terrifies any enemy that sees it, even large ogres, bringing them down to their knees.
But it deals damage too. Like, look at that. Look at the chunks of damage he dealt right there. What?
Which takes some time to cast, but brings forth an illusion of a dragon that terrifies.
Like, look at, boom. No, that must have been the sorcerer's cast, though. I can't really tell too well. But it almost looks like it's a fireball from the dragon now he is casting. So it's probably from Yuri over there. Some spell or something that he casted on him, maybe? Because it seems like the fire's already there. Yeah, and it explodes before the dragon actually manifests.
Terrifies any enemy that sees it, even large ogres, bringing them down to their knees, giving your pawns ample opportunity to do big damage. Since most of the Trickster's other skills seemed well suited for dealing with small to mid-sized enemies, this was a really nice addition to see as something that could also let them deal with the bigger and badder enemies.
Jeez.
The Trickster was not an easy vocation to figure out in just an hour's time.
Of course not.
It took me a little while to fully grasp the aggro system, avoiding pulling too much aggro and not having a way to get away from the enemies I just attracted, but once it clicked, I found it to be a uniquely satisfying vocation.
And you got to be careful with the Trickster too, because you see him like spamming, you know, I don't know if that was actually him spamming. No, this looks like a tutorial message, because if you're spamming constantly for your pawns to go, like I've mentioned in previous videos, one of the things that's going to happen is you're going to form a certain type of AI in your pawn, because your pawns learn from your actions, and the more you ask for their help or tell them to go or, you know, give them instructions, the more they go down a certain path. So you might not necessarily want to always be spamming the go button, which appears to be something that would be very good for this particular class. You got to be careful with that stuff.
Away from the enemies I just attracted, but once it clicked, I found it to be a uniquely satisfying vocation that brought to mind one of the core tenets of Devil May Cry's combat. It's not just about killing every enemy in the room, but how you kill every enemy in the room. It's an intentionally underpowered vocation that's designed to encourage creative thinking, to solve difficult combat problems in ways beyond just swinging a weapon or hurling a tornado at it. And it's one that I'm very excited to experiment more with once I've got my hands on the full game. Thanks for watching, and this is just the beginning of our IGN first coverage of Dragon's Dogma 2. In case you missed it, make sure to check out our 18 minutes of gameplay covering 4 of the vocations, and for everything else, give it a ear on IGN.
Yeah, that vocation is actually looking more interesting than I initially predicted. The usefulness of something that can bring big monsters down to their knees for one opening of a good, you know, magic cast spell and a couple of like more powerful skills from melee characters or even ranged characters. It's just a fundamentally powerful thing that for a lot of people might think, well, what do you mean? It's just the beginning of the fight. Yeah, but you can really steamroll in a lot of encounters when it comes to Dragon's Dogma. Like in the original Dragon's Dogma, once you learn that with lightning you can just bust up Cyclopses, things change drastically, because the amount of time that they're going like, oh, lightning hit me in the head, this really hurts. Your party is just like maiming the friggin' dude. So yeah. This seems like a very interesting vocation, and I did not expect to almost be somewhat tempted to forsake my beloved fighter with the sword and shield. As I mentioned, there's going to be a link to this video if you want to watch it without my commentary in the description of the video. So hopefully, if you guys enjoyed this, do hit that like button, subscribe, bell notification icon, all of that jazz. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Stay strong, stay safe. Peace out.